intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey Star Trek Fleet Command fans, in today's video I want to talk about the first player in the game who has completed all of the 4-star, 3-star, etc. Q's trials, which I find is an incredibly impressive feat considering. Now, for those who are about to ask, yes, this is a high-level player and they're actually in my alliance. Shout out to Server 20 and IA, the first group to finish the Q's trial. Suck it, everybody else. Ha ha! But also, I want to also provide a really quick note from this amazing champion of Q's trials, CaptainAnders. He wants to be very specific. There's no bonus and no point in spending the money to do this unless you simply want to complete it. You don't get anything for it. It's simply a woo, you're done. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll let you decide. But you should know that there is no real incentive to go and do all that unless you just want to. I'll admit, I enjoy doing the Q's trials, but I don't know if I'd be willing to drop the money to make all that happen. At least not yet. We'll slow pace it. But let's go ahead and talk about what Anders did to complete this run, make this magical thing happen, and the crews and ships he used to do it. All right, so how about we take a look at the big shot that took it all down? Anders defeating the 4-star Q's trials, and here's what that battle looked like. Now, the crewing might surprise you a little bit, but we'll talk about that because I was actually talking to Jules Verne this morning. For those that don't remember Jules, he's one of the big Star Trek Fleet Command math nerds we have, along with myself and several others, Blues, and we're long list. Join my Discord if you want to see the long list of nerds who are all sitting around playing with spreadsheets and cracking numbers. But I was talking this morning how, and just confirming that where we're at, like the 2-star Q's trials, Chin and Talon definitely reach a point eventually where they stop working. Yet that doesn't seem to be the case here, but we'll worry about that in a minute. More importantly is understanding why this worked and how it worked. Now, obviously having a big ship matters. So for all the players out there, as you're working towards that, working towards Q trials, well, you can sit and all on both directions. Now, to be clear, this is not a requirement. After finishing this and learning the strategy, I was talking with Anders, you can probably finish this off with different ships, or at least weaker versions of the same ship. And in fact, he tried to do this with a smaller ship and got pretty far, I would say. I would say that he did pretty well. To give you a shot of that here, let's swap it real quick. So this is doing it with a Crozier. This is clearly not even a max Crozier. This is a much smaller ship than what he just did by 800 million-ish, and still took down 60% of the hull. So there's more to it than simply being pure power. And that's how this battle was won. So let's talk about the little steps that made it powerful. The first thing is understanding that there's a little bit of a lie happening on your screen. What I mean by that is this says it's an interceptor hostile, which could be true from the fact that it's shooting kinetics, and tends to happen that most interceptors shoot kinetics in this game. But if you actually go deeper into it, the key was looking at its mitigation stats. So looking at its defense, you'll see that it is loaded with shield deflection. Tons of it. 1.22 billion of it. That is a lot of shield deflection, ladies and gentlemen. That is a hell of a lot. Now, why does that matter? If y'all don't know, Interceptor's primary stat is actually dodge. So what ends up happening in this particular case was Anders goes, you know what? Dodge. Interceptors. Let's use an Enterprise. Didn't go so well. That didn't do terrible, but this is a max Enterprise. This is as big as she gets. Maybe a little bit more is a little bit of research. But I mean, 1.475, we're not exactly talking about Rev's 13 mil Enterprise. This is a big boy, and it took down half. Yet you would think it had the advantage being an Explorer against Interceptor. So for those who don't know the math of the actual how the triangle works, what ends up happening, I'll put this back on the screen, is you have a weight system. So the primary stat when calculating mitigation for a interceptor is dodge, it would be worth or weighted at 0.55 in terms of value. And then the others are weighted 0.2. So if you put it in the calculator, in theory, dodge should be the most effective at boosting your mitigation. Here's the thing. When you got 1.22 billion of something, you kind of don't need to focus on your main in dodge. And that's why we say that this is kind of coded almost as an interceptor in some ways. And that was the key, checking this and seeing how we could drop that mitigation to the floor and overcome what was a surprisingly difficult hostile. So having the ability to jump above that, and that of course is boosting your piercing, lower their mid, however you end up doing him, was part of the keys of winning. Now, the weird part of this is if you flip it to the other side, it isn't the same thing over here. It's actually pretty even. So it didn't have a huge bonus. Interceptors would typically have a massive bonus with armor piercing. Not the case here, actually. It has pretty even across the board going down. And as long as you can keep your mitigation higher, then you're not really worried about overcoming that. Again, if you've never seen the STFC mitigation calculator, I would encourage you to check it out to see some of these examples and know why you're able to have these type of outcomes. So we talk all the time about the importance of like really diving in to see the math of the game and see the reasons things work, how they work. Because there are definitely ways that you can try to go into kind of like, I wouldn't say blind, but you go into with certain expectations that you can do or not do something that you might be surprised you can actually do. So what I tell people all the time on the show, you're better at this game than you think you are. You can do more than you think you can do. And here's a great example of that right here. And again, this is still a doable task. I believe after this video comes out and more people see it, and Anders has obviously been talking with more high levels, we're gonna have many people who are breaking through Q's trials in the coming weeks. And I think that you're gonna find somebody's gonna send me a Crozier, they do it with a Crozier. Now there's more to just this though. It wasn't just mitigation, it wasn't just cruise. There's also another aspect that we have to keep in mind, bonuses. And now for that, we're gonna pause and flip to another screen. Okay, so for Anders to pull this off, this beautiful lady was actually key. Now, I'm curious to see how this gets sourced in the future, because as you can see, I do not have Fleet Commander Janeway, Admiral Janeway in this case. But the real key is taking a look at the tactical tree here on the left side. Now, yes, this is going to be something that we're talking about high levels getting to, and eventually this is for you to understand and see as a player where you can grind towards, whether you're free to play, light spender, etc. And for the record, you know, when they actually brought this out, in terms of what they've charged in the past, this was relatively cheap to invest in if you're a spender. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and do that. You don't have to spend money in this game. You can slow grind it and see where your future is with this. But the key was the bottom two rungs of this one. To show Anders, here is where Anders maxed out his left side of this tree. And the real key, like I said, is the bottom two rungs on the right side. Now, why are those key? Yes, you do have to have the building up and leveled up, etc. But the keys were decreasing the opponent's base damage in Q's trials. Sounds very familiar as to what a Chen and Talon would typically do. But if you look at the repression, once it maxes out, is another 20% reduction, which you have a research, as y'all remember, does 30%. So that's actually knocking us up to 50. Well, starting to make a little bit more sense here. So 50% reduction, quite a bit. Now let's also take a look at the bottom one, which is Dark Frontier, decreasing the opponent's base shield mitigation in Q's trials. Starts at 2%, maxes out at 30. Remember, when natively sitting there, shields will allow or stop 80% of any non-mitigated damage, and not talking about different types of isolytics, but just in base. So what this does is knock it down to 50. Now it's a 50-50 split if you max that out. And this is specifically for Q's trials. So these two are part of the reasons that you're able to go and make stuff like this happen. If nothing else, the Pipe Moreau, you know, we're working on giving yourself max mitigation. And with a combination of all the Admiral Janeway bonuses, we're now really deflating the power of that hostile at the far right. Now, more information is still needed. More of these still need to get run. And I am very curious to see what more ways that players like you out there come up with to beat these. But this is certainly pushing you in the direction of how you can take these to the next level and how you can take your Q's trials to the next level where you could be getting stuck. Now, am I necessarily going out and saying use Pipe Moreau Chin / Pipe Moreau Talon? I'm not, because there's definitely a point where they don't seem to have the same level of effectiveness at some point in the trials. And you've also got to worry that in the Q's trials, for anybody who's going through like the 4 stars, you'll know that you run into a big gun, just like you would on those 8472 bio ships, where that big round 8 gun appears and wants to try to one-shot you. So definitely some hurdles to be found there. But as we can see here, with the first person to do it, it is beatable. And it certainly is a fun little task to take down. I mean, for me though, I can't do it. I'm gonna stick my fun to be like building military warplanes, because that's fun to me, and I'm nowhere near 4-star Q's trial. So we'll just we'll just stick with that for now. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. Obviously, for the majority of us, this is a long, long way away, but it's still cool to see. And obviously, anybody who completes something first, that's a nice, you know, little pat on the back that you get for it. And That's what this kind of is. So congratulations, Anders, on being the first one to do it. And for all the other players out there looking, well, here's a path line to see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I do want to reemphasize what Anders said in the very beginning, though. If you're a player out there seriously considering doing this, remember, there is no point except for just doing it for the sake of doing it. There's no bonus. There's no yummy yummy at the end. It's literally just a meh. But if you like it, maybe you can be the second to make it happen. See y'all on the next video. Deuces, that's me. Live long and plunder. Stay safe for the Space Cowboys. I'm out. So this isn't like a sponsored video or anything, but I've been really into building military airplanes, boats, tanks, etc. And I've been getting them at Warbricks, and I actually partnered with them to where if you want to go ahead and grab some of this cool stuff and build some of the things that we've been building on stream, you can do that as well by going over to their website, warbricks.com. I've got a link down below. And since I asked them, they did give me a discount code. So if you want to get some of this really cool stuff, like I've built the F-16, the ME-262, going to build some of the tanks. I built the Panzer IV already. So if you're into this kind of like military history, but also the Lego style, check you out some of the cool stuff that they've got here. I really enjoy it. Maybe you will as well. And if you save 5%, hey, 5%.
An even better outro than the intro. For the empire and glory to your house.